Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is your Reluctant Gringo back again with another video. And oh boy, here we go. It's amazing to see just how volatile Disney is as a company. As if they have very little control over what goes on or what their employees do that can have massive consequences on their bottom line. The last week or so has been a prime example of this, and it has seen some good, some bad, and some downright ugly for the House of Mouse. As always, I like to start out with the good, and that would be Inside Out 2, a film I very much enjoyed, and it seems a lot of people around the world share that sentiment. As for right now, this film, with a reported budget of $200 million, is sitting at $453 million worldwide, and currently the fourth highest grossing film of the year, just behind Kung Fu Panda 4, Godzilla Kong: The New Empire, and Dune Part 2. Now, most estimates would put the break-even point for this film at around $550 to $600 million for Disney to start to see a profit. As I said in my review, I think it will get there and may even see a slight profit, which is great because it is such a good film, and as far as sequels go, I think Pixar nailed it. When you take into account merchandise sales and things of that nature, it's probably safe to say at this point that Inside Out 2 is a win for Disney. And believe me, they needed it. Unfortunately for Disney, that's about it for them in the positivity department. Here's the bad. The Acolyte has become a show that is being talked about less because of its great quality, because it has none, and more about how poorly it is constructed, produced, acted, written, and directed. It literally is the lowest reviewed show Lucasfilm has ever released, sitting at around 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. Willow was considered so bad it was removed from the D+ platform as if it did not exist, and that had at least a 65% rating. And before you say review bombing, sorry, that actually is not a thing. When you hear excuses like that, racism, bigotry, and all that bullshit, that is nothing more than Hollywood trying to take a big dose of copium so they don't have to admit failure, which is something people with those types of egos just cannot do. Episode 3 and Episode 4 of The Acolyte are being labeled some of the worst television ever produced, not just for Disney or Star Wars, but in terms of the last 50 years. Boring, nonsensical, filled with inaccuracies and infidelities to the source material. Seemingly, it feels like a giant therapy session for Leslie Headland and Amanda Stenberg because they are too wrapped up in their cocoons of victimhood. A $180 million project averaging $23 million per episode, this show has caused what some would say, including me, irreparable damage to the Star Wars franchise, the future of Lucasfilm, and the overall brand of Disney as a whole. And we've not even gotten to the ugly yet. What The Acolyte did manage to do was to create a product that can be criticized on two different levels. As a Star Wars fan, it can be picked apart as something made by people who have no sentient idea about the world of Star Wars. There has been an established 40 plus years of world building that fans have come to love and have wanted to see protected from bastardization, and this show managed to destroy it all within two 28-minute episodes. It really is a breathtaking feat when you think of it like that. The second level of criticism is that The Acolyte has turned the Star Wars brand into an LGBTQ platform, and some people want to call us bigots for not liking it. Go right ahead. I'm a nerd, always have been, and nerds don't care about who you are or what you are. We're all rejects and freaks. But I'm also not a member of the LGBTQ plus community, nor do I want to be, nor do I want to see Star Wars turned into that, because frankly, I and the rest of the general audience is sick to death of having alternative lifestyles rammed down our throats and having traditional IPs that have enjoyed massive success being torn down because, as I have said in the past, it seems like the LGBTQ community cannot build anything worthy on its own or produce original content on its own because the few times when they have, it failed miserably. So, due to their self-loathing and inability to accept themselves and all the mental health problems that come with that particular subset of the population, what do? They target, they attack, then they destroy by trying to appropriate pieces of the culture that have been successful before them. In a way, it's kind of funny. The film Inside Out 2 has anxiety as the main antagonist, a mental disorder that tries to find acceptance by taking over the emotional control of the main character, Riley. And it turns into a blueprint for a self-destructive meltdown that threatens to ruin the lives of not only the main character, but potentially her closest friends. I think the writers and producers of The Acolyte, as well as the rest of the LGBT community, should watch this film and really take its message to heart. Now, to the ugly. With The Acolyte taking center stage this past week and the manner in which it has created so much ill will towards the Disney brand, is it any wonder why the stock price has failed to gain any traction after it lost almost 20% of its value in the last 2 months? From a healthy $122 a share to under $100 just a few days ago. And of course, this is still very distant from its all-time high of $190. And so many future projects for Disney seem to be in production hell because they are so mismanaged and so poorly conceived. they seem destined to flop, Snow White being the one that comes to mind. And just today, even The Hollywood Reporter, a Disney-friendly publication, ran a story about the new Blade film and how it cannot keep a director or finalize a script, and it seems to point the finger at star Mahershala Ali and another out-of-control ego. Of course, this could also just be a hit piece put out by Disney to point any blame for failure at Ali instead of themselves, as it might be best for Disney to cancel this film altogether. I mean, it's ugly enough when the stock is tanking and your company is hemorrhaging money due to a failed film production, but what is even uglier are the price increases for some of the dining experiences at Disney World and Disneyland in an effort to squeeze more money out of the public to cover your losses elsewhere. On average, a dining experience for one adult will now cost about $65 for breakfast and about $80 for lunch at some restaurants in the park. For a kid, prices didn't change. They're still looking at $40 for breakfast for one child and $50 for lunch and dinner. Disney has now become so unfriendly towards families with these price increases, especially those with tighter budgets than the top 1% in the country, that a Disney vacation is actually a risky financial expenditure for most of us. When I took my kids to Disney World in 2007 and 2009, as a family of 5, we paid $80 for all of us in total for a dinner or a lunch. I'm basically seeing a 500% increase, and some people will say Disney is not struggling financially. If they were not, they would not have increases like this, which are outpacing inflation by a huge, wide margin. And no, that's not the end of the ugly. Let's get back to the Acolyte. Leslie Headland and Amanda Stenberg have, I believe, a need for help. They are very confused and I think very angry people, and that is coming across in their statements and interviews and other media offerings. Before the premiere of The Acolyte, Amanda Stenberg and Leslie Headland did an interview where the show was discussed as the gayest Star Wars ever. Their words, not mine. And they have both labeled everyday fans as gay, that Star Wars is inherently gay, whether you are or you're not, that the character of C-3PO is gay, that R2-D2 is actually a lesbian, and then, when Episode 3 premieres and it's all about lesbians in space, both Leslie and Amanda complain about the fans and their dissecting of the show on the basis of pushing gender identity. So, first, they declare that their show and Star Wars is now all about gender identity and being gay, and when that becomes the center topic of conversation, the lead actor and the writer, director, creator of the show, they get angry. And that's the pattern with the LGBTQ movement in Hollywood. They declare what they are going to do on a social messaging level. It is not well received by the general audience. The self-hate and self-loathing they feel feeds into their imagined and mentally constructed victimhood, which then in turn manifests as anger towards the fans because people like Amanda and Leslie cannot be honest with themselves and admit that they produce something so awful and so terrible that it should cause panic for the both of them, for the well-being of the future of their careers in the industry. No. It's easier to just blame someone else for your problems. Pretty sure they have a term for that in psychology. It's called projection. They are projecting their self-hate onto the fans because their egos and their constructed worldview cannot handle the reality of the shortcomings within themselves. I mean, what a far cry from the core values that created Disney in the first place, that created Star Wars in the first place. If you are wondering why long-established and beloved intellectual properties like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Doctor Who, the MCU are failing, it's because the people who are in charge of them now are people like this. They are not fans of those franchises. They are people with a beef, a bone to pick, a problem with themselves that they cannot manage on their own, and it manifests as hate and vitriol and is projected out into the world, and it's sad. It doesn't end well for anyone, and it's not a good way to go about living life. You end up with cringy, laughable things like this. Now, I planned on showing you the music video, but I cannot show you Amanda's newly released music video because it is getting so roasted that she is demanding that YouTube issue copyright strikes against anyone commenting on it negatively, even though she requested that people comment and react to it in her post that accompanied the video. That is how fragile this little snowflake has become, and is a marker for how serious we should take her message, her self-imposed victimhood, or her talent as an entertainer. And I really want to know from all of you, does anyone look at this and think, this was the right move? That's the right message? Continue to attack the fans? Attack the people? Be hypocritical? And by the way, one of Amanda's main messages in this music video is her complaint about being taken out of context, her words being used against her from over 5 years ago when she was just a teenager. Well, that sucks, and I wish things like that didn't happen. But don't look at us in the real world to fix that. It is the progressive extreme side of society that you are a part of, Amanda, that created cancel culture, that made it okay to go back at any time in someone's life, dig up something they said, something they posted, something they put on Twitter, something that was not nice, and use it to destroy their lives in current day. So please, stop taking every opportunity to play the victim and start taking responsibility for your words, your actions, and the products you produce. I believe if everybody did that, we'd all be better off. And that's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. As always, I'm still your reluctant gringo, and from south of the border, salud and a huevo.